Field and Company.
Getting ready for the Golden Knights game tonight, 6:30. Big game 3 after emotional victory in game 2. Sorry, I had a different kind of emotion just before we went to break. I was laughing at Von Tobel's rant about Tim Tebow. Boy, the rest of you guys on the show get so worked up about Tebow. And your case, again, is what? Privilege? It's just not fair. He's getting an opportunity he does not deserve.
Correct. There are a lot of guys who worked hard for that spot, and he just gets to wake up and decide he wants to be a tight end, and he gets to go sign with the team. It's not fair.
You know what's sad? I think I've been beaten and battered as an older person by just watching the broadcast industry and watching, kid after kid after kid get a chance. So you get to a point where you're like, whatever, you got to fight through it. But I get your point. Howard Bryant is with us. I know he's been talking about Tebow, and we're going to get to La Russa, and Howard, of course, does great work for ESPN.com. Howard, how you doing? Thanks for joining us here in Vegas.
Good. How's it going?
Really good, really good. So where are you now on Tim Tebow? Today we had the jersey release. He's number 85, 90th player on the roster. There's a big press release and quotes from Tim Tebow. Are you as annoyed as a lot of people about this opportunity that Tebow has grabbed?
Well, I'm not. I'm annoyed by it because I'm annoyed by things like this. I think what bothers me about it is the gaslighting of it all.
Yeah.
Do not try to make an argument that there's any other reason why he's on the roster. Don't tell me about, he's here to help the young players. Just stop with all of it. Just Urban Meyer is showing his hand that he's all about the favor on this one. That's it. And, and keep it quiet, keep your mouth shut the next time somebody wants to bitch and moan about merit, because this is the exact opposite of merit, right? This is, nobody is saying, and I think what bothers me about this is the idea that complaining about Tebow suggests that you have no idea how the world works. We know exactly how the world works. That's why this is sort of infuriating, right? And just because it's infuriating doesn't mean that you're naive to how these things happen. I think the problem with it is when, you have to think about it in context. It's really not about Tebow, right? We know that Tim Tebow doesn't deserve the opportunity. What it really is about is all the other periods. Go back to the Rooney Rule. Go back to somebody getting hired or fired when they shouldn't have. It all goes back to the same thing, which is, I don't want to hear another coach out there talking about how, I just want to go out there and get the best players. It's not about that. We sell sports as if it is somehow this meritocracy that it isn't in other industries. It's all the same garbage.
And it's clearly not in the coaching ranks. And again, not to, I don't want to get on these families that have, coaches who kind of get jetted through the system. And, little Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, he's a good coach. He's a good coach. But reality is maybe Howard doesn't get the same opportunity without a name that's synonymous in football to be a head coach or be a coordinator by the time you're 33 or 36 years old.
Well, exactly. Well, and the other piece of this, too, is the idea that people really tried to promulgate that Tim Tebow was somehow being blackballed for his religious beliefs. And that's like, that's blackballing? This guy has gotten more opportunities and more visibility than anybody. He can't play. And so he has always landed on his feet. He played minor league baseball, having not played baseball since high school. I mean, who are we kidding here? And I think it's like, okay, if you want Tim Tebow to be a sideshow and to be visible, then just call it out for what it is, right? But don't insult people's intelligence about merit. That's the part that's the gaslighting part of this, that people are trying to tell you that it isn't specifically what it is.
I saw someone on Twitter trying to make a comparison, Tebow to Udonis Haslem.
Yeah. Could not disagree more. And that's the other point. If you want to make this, then if you want to make that argument, then Tim Tebow should be working for the University of Florida. Mm-hmm. And that that there's some sort of institutional memory here that he brings. Udonis Haslem is a pro. Udonis Haslem is a guy who has been in that organization. He's a championship level player. He's won titles with Shaq. He's won titles with Dwayne Wade. And to make that argument, and Jim Sirwicki, who did it, I like Jim. I used to read him in the New Yorker all the time, so I'm not fighting with him. It's just that I thought it was a very, very poor comparison. And essentially, because Udonis Haslem is being paid essentially, as my boy Bomani Jones said, above scale to be an assistant coach. This isn't that. This guy is taking a roster spot, and you're trying to make it seem as though he is somehow of value. You want to put him on the roster as a coach, put him on as a coach. You want him to sit there and mentor, Trevor Lawrence, then put him on and say that's what his role is. But don't give him number 85. You're taking somebody else's opportunity.
Why do you think so many have-nots in the general public will gravitate to a guy like Tebow, will get mad at a conversation like this? And the have-nots I'm talking about are not, doesn't mean people who haven't achieved. Maybe they've achieved, but they had no connections. They had no hand up the ladder. Right. I'm always amazed by people who are not Tim Tebow's, don't have any connections, had a fight to do it, and they're like, hey, you're insulting. Like somehow Tebow's a role model for him.
Yeah, I think it's the politics of it all, and I think it's the time period that we're in. And I also think, that you can't ignore the elephant in the room. The people of opposing political spectrums tried to put him and Kaepernick as polar opposites, and it's not even the same sport. It's not the same category. So I think that there are a lot of pent up emotions and anger involved in this for much, much larger reasons than the merits of the conversation. I think people look for symbols, and I think Tim Tebow has undeservedly become a symbol for people who are sort of tired of the political awakening of these athletes over the past decade. And I think that he sort of has become their symbol for really no apparent reason.
Howard, I'm curious, and I'm not really sure where I stand on this, but where do you feel about criticizing Tebow himself? Because I've seen a lot of, well, you don't really criticize Tebow, but I think you can. Like, he knows he can do this. He knows he can wake up and try to be a baseball player. He knows after that doesn't work out, he can try to be a tight end.
Go back to a broadcaster. He got right. An immediate entrance right into the broadcast world, and he's okay at it.
And then that's what it kind of annoys me with Tebow, too, is he almost gets a pass for these certain amount of things where I think he deserves some criticism because he knows he can play the game and get, with, for lack of a better term, get away with doing stuff like this.
Well, sure. I think he deserves criticism. I mean, somebody put out a tweet last week that said, one of the things I really admire about Tebow is that he never gave up on his dream. I'm like, well, neither did Peter Pan. He didn't want to grow up either. So let's not give Peter Pan that much credit. At some point, you know your game in the system. At some point, at some point you're sort of shading people surreptitiously that you've got all these connections and people are willing to give you a shot because of your connections. I think he deserves as much criticism as the people sort of praising him because it's essentially all a game, right? Everyone's sort of winking and laughing at you. And one person is collecting off of all of this. It's just a sideshow.
And as we go forward, here's the thing that drives me nuts, Howard, because we have this like collective of result-based thinking. I remember a couple years ago when the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl, there was this pushback all of a sudden, like, see, it's not nepotism. He made it to the Super Bowl. And it's the same thing here with Tebow. Even if he becomes the greatest tight end ever, he still did not deserve what he got in terms of the opportunity.
No, that's 100%.